Thank you. So, how will UCS develop? And we've got the particular situation that we've got a summit in May. And summit in May means that we had 1.5 years to develop something since last summit. So the time slot, you think it's long, and then there are more and more topics that one would like to address. But I'm in the favorable and comfortable situation that Peter and Millie have already presented quite a lot, so I can get into the technical side, but I would love to have more time to present it. So should there be any questions, anything that you would like to understand, and there are Armin and Dirk who will then expand on two individual points. Okay, and in May, it's by chance that we celebrate 1 year of UCS 5. So it's the 21st of May 2021 that it was published. So Thursday a year ago, the speaker said 22, but that was wrong. So we looked at this. The look and feel had been changed. We've got UI, new portal. We also have new functionalities that were included. But a lot of work really went into the backend, not only the Debian upgrade, but also the migration from Python 2 to Python 3. That's a novelty for UCS 5. In earlier releases, we didn't really have so many changes in the backend and the APIs, and part of the changes were dictated because of the Python 2 to Python 3 non-API compatibility. And this is why UCS 5 for each app had to be tested whether it was compatible, whether we could release it. So there was really a lot of work involved. On the graph here, it shows you the release is continuously expanding. It really replaces UCS 4, and we've got a few app updates and errata apps, and I will just present a few highlights. For the web interface, we've worked on the theming, so you can theme them all at one location, and you can choose a light theme or a dark theme, and you can change very quickly. And this has to do with a portal, self-management modules, but you can also create your own themes quite easily. Then we've got the new framework. That's a JavaScript framework with a portal, so UCS 5, that's Vue.js. And we also expanded this further and further. Self-service is also based on this framework. In the portal, we did more with this, more editing capabilities. And we also spend a lot of time going into free access or barrier-free. And we also have new functionalities included in self-service. This is what I would like to stress here. So 3-4 weeks ago, we started with service-specific passwords that can be set with UCS. And the first point that we chose was wireless LAN radios. We know that with the passwords, usually these wireless LAN passwords are stored on tablets, notebooks, many different devices. And the storage usually is always done that it has to be readable. So as a notebook, I need to send the clear text password to the router. And then you have to know that these passwords are much harder. And service-specific password and self-service, so the end user now has the possibility to create one's own password with regard to wireless LAN access. So the endangered, slightly password, which is at higher risk of being hit, is slightly less strong, but for the different administrators, this is used, and they can give it the end user for control. And we also spend a lot of time and really planned time is for the documentation. For documentation, well, we switched it to a new backend. And as a reader, you notice it when you look at reworked documents. They've got a new look, a new feel. Navigation has improved. With regard to the switch of the backend, we also did a review of the content. So a lot of the handbook was corrected and simplified. But we've also got new contents in this manual or handbook. We now have an index of the different UCR variables that are used, so you can look which variables do exist. And we also have started with new documents. An example is the architecture document. That is, it shows the structure of UCS from a technical perspective. So for somebody who plans the system, you then get an overview which module and which components are available. We will further expand that in future. That is, switch documentation to the new framework, and we hope that the new framework will lead to make it easier for those who externally access it to make a comment, and the old framework with XML was always a bit cumbersome. Okay, on the presentation of UCS 5, I already told you that at the App Center we did a lot. We really had to deep dive into the apps to make sure that they work on UCS 5. So for main core apps, domain controller and others, we worked it, and there were a lot of third-party apps that were joined. And last year we very much worked on making further apps available. So they have the UCS at School or MS365 connector that I just want to mention here. So now we're very complete with regard to the App Center. Then there are a few new apps which had been mentioned before. So I would like to add the aux connector, also very, very interesting for large aux deployments. However, for the time being, there are a few apps that are missing, which had been very much favored under UCS 4. UCS dashboard was only updated last week, and I have a few details, but what will come is the additional functionality for monitoring Google GC and Suite connector, and the Copano apps are currently in the test app center, but there are just a few final update scenarios that are missing, and then they will be released. And then there's also another one which is at the test center. Only a few points are missing. So we could say that now we can say that UCS 5 is compatible with regard to the apps that are requested from our customers. Looking back, we would say that we got a lot of positive UCS 5 for the new UI features and options, but also with regard to stability and speed, which has been improved thanks to the release. And what we would have wished to happen more quickly is to the speed in which we make apps available. And this is also the main feedback that we get from users. So they would have switched more early to UCS 5 than they did because one or the other app didn't work yet. What we did to reduce the pressure is that we will only stop maintenance of UCS 4.4 once it's clear and plannable when the different apps will be available, what will be the time window. So if you looked at the blog, punctually before the summit last weekend, we decided. So now that we know when the last apps will be available, we said we will give the users time to prepare for the UCS 5 update, and usually update window during summer or winter months before we will stop maintenance of UCS 4.4. So enterprise maintenance, that is the maintenance for customers with subscription, will go until January 2023. That is for UCS 4.4. And the core edition maintenance, that is for those who do not pay subscription, who use the free of charge version, will usually end 6 months earlier. But we decided now that this will be end of September 2022. And another point where I'm really looking forward to the feedback and the talks and the ideas you might have. Peter and Millie already said that we did a lot of other things during last year, things which indirectly or directly had an impact on the product. And here I would like to mention the promotional project that is Colibri and Possible, just to have a technical part. So Colibri, the National Educational Portal, would like to get people who would like to get further education, providing them access to the different offers that are available. And we've got technically two components that we worked upon. One is the portal, the UCS portal, so that you see here as one of the different offers. We improved this to have a better work with the portal, more content that I can search for, getting proposals, and a few things have already been entered into the product or are on its way to being implemented, and that we had federated single sign-on. So at this service, you can really access if you are a school or UCC account, and we've had key cloak that we used to do this. That's the small screenshot that you see. In the possible project, we say, well, we will scale this even bigger. And Peter said this is in the context of Gaia X. So there we've got federation services by Gaia X, so a standard which describes how organization A can interact with organization B. And then we use the Phoenix stack in this group and try to establish ways to allow a user from organization A being able to work together with the user from organization B on a document without actually having to need clustered services, but allowing each one to use one's own infrastructure. In the Phoenix project itself, we've been working on this, and Peter had screenshots, and I will just give you a few examples. So here at the back, there's one screenshot showing the integration that we had presented as a prototype last summit. So once you did a single sign-on via UCS and Open Exchange, you have Webmailer, and then here Phoenix Nextcloud as a file store. And then once you've connected this, then from the Webmailer, you can attach files directly. So you don't have to download them via desktop and upload them again. So from the Exchange, you get directly the URL from Nextcloud. And the same is actually, it had been implemented with OwnCloud. A second important point is that here at the front, we've got the portal, not just a uniform look and feel with regard to other applications, but they've also got the same content and the same menu. So the modules that are released within, or have been released within the portal, are also then offered in the standard menu of Open Exchange. So when you want to look, what can I do apart from email, whether I get file store or as not, this the same setting as in the portal, the same base. And there are another of other small integrations. So I can book a video conference room, for example, and you can have a look at it in the demonstration portal. Okay, another topic that really kept us busy is the Univention ID Broker. That has been completed. That is the combination between educational offerings and integration partners like Bettermarks, and we'll then also school authorities, but also state authorities, and this via a simple single sign-on and APIs. And from our point of view, this system technically consists of two components. So we've got the single sign-on. That's the most important basis, which exactly allows for this connection that Peter described this morning. So a school authority comes, has immediate single sign-on with all the offers, and an offering is added, then immediately single sign-on can be offered with one school authority. All this has two important features. One is that the school authority has a control where the offerings can go. So who will get the checkbox? This is allowed for my users. And the second is the pseudonymization. So the user will only get a pseudonym, and the offering will only get a pseudonym and not the true name. Then the learning context, that's the part, as I call it, which means that the offering really offers from the beginning genuine added value. For teachers, an empty offering doesn't really make any sense. If I want to teach, I need the courses, I need to find the people that I need to teach. And as a teacher, I don't want to spend a whole week and just fill in all my users. And single sign-on alone cannot do this, and then we need additional interfaces, and we offer these, and these are the APIs. So once the educational offering is benefiting from this, the user then can really find these contents in the portal and can use them. And as we mentioned before, there are clear overlaps with the extract of FIU, and we mainly seen this in the single sign-on. This is Linus project, and we are exchanging, and I just spoke to Michael Smith. So the single sign-on needs to be harmonified. We don't want to have two single sign-on worlds. So once the Vitus project is as far that it offers or will be able to offer single sign-on for teachers and pupils, then it should also work with our ID broker and their technical sketches, and we make sure that this will work. So I told you a lot. So what is ahead of us? So for time reasons, I just picked up on a few things. So Keycloak will be released as identity provider. Millie showed this, and Arvid will tell you more in detail about Keycloak. The app is already available at the Test App Center, and it also emerged from the Colibri project. And during the weeks to come, we also want to release a UCS School update, and there will be improvements mainly for the site servers. And in Vion, there are things that could be more performing, and then this will really give a harmonized picture once a school authority comes to us with UCS 5. And then there is an update of the MS365 connector. We're working on this. And those who use it might remember that 2-3 months ago we had an update where the connector was given the possibility to manage teams and Microsoft, so that within UCS and a group you could say this is a team Microsoft in Microsoft. And now we had introduced a new API that we use on Microsoft side, and all existing functions will now be switched to the current settings of Microsoft, because Microsoft degraded the APIs that we used and will switch them off. And this is why we prepare the connector to make sure that the functionality will continue to exist. As always, there are a few things that we do on infrastructures and base. And here I just wanted to mention the Samba upgrade in the UCS 5.02. This is where we plan it. That we will have an upgrade 4.13 to 4.16 maintenance release. And when you look at the change there, then developers are happy that SMB1 will be kicked out, and they can then kick out a lot to create room for other things. Last point, and there the release speed was really quicker than me. So this will not come next week, but it was just published, actually, Radius. So Radius service had been expanded. So mobile devices and devices, if I then use VLANs, and then I can have WLAN IDs for and devices that I can mention. So independent on where I switch it on, the device will end up in the correct VLAN. So much as a quick excerpt. There are so many other things that happened, but I didn't have enough time. However, I would like to draw your attention to the last week's update of the UCS dashboard. And the UCS dashboard had been available since UCS 4. It's a dashboard based on Grafana and Prometheus, so very easy overview over the UCS landscape. And I can look at the key performance indicators, so how full is it, how busy is CPU, what is the traffic like, network traffic. So this had been pre-configured, and what is new since last week is now that this app will now be available for UCS 5. And on the other hand, we have a upgrade of the versions of Grafana as well as Prometheus, and there's an automatic conversion of data that are stored in Prometheus, and then you have updated versions of the tools, and thus will allow you to create your own dashboards. And what we are planning to do, and this had been announced, that based upon these new versions, we will be having the possibility to offer alerting within Grafana and Prometheus. So alerting means once certain threshold values are exceeded, like, for example, the board, then you get a text message, web interface message, or whatever, that this is happening. And we plan to offer the same function of nudges alerting also for Grafana and Prometheus, so that this will then also replace the UCS 4 version. And as we'd been asked earlier on, so if you have your own Nagios or Nagios solutions, then you can also continue to use them on UCS 5.0. So the plugins that are required for this will continue to exist under UCS 5.0. Okay, and a further point that I would quickly like to mention is this area of roles and rights. Millie talked about this a bit, but I would like to expand on the technical sides, because it's about roles and rights when it comes to contents of the administrative. So as a user, once I'm in the management system, what am I allowed to see? What am I allowed to change? And for the time being, we have a very comprehensive role and rights models, and then you have ACLs on the data backend. They need to be defined. So technically, these are open LDAP LCLs that you define, and there in detail I can set anything and everything, who is allowed to do what and not allowed to do whatever else. However, this has the disadvantage that it's highly complex. To give you a typical example, and probably the most complex one, is the password change. Password change in a front end is an attribute, so I just rewrite a password. In the data backend, these are different hashes, data upload data, password history, and this just creates a situation that I have very complex ACLs in order to have a data backend which allows for a password change. So we want to get away from this model and to get out of the complexity and allow for more flexibility. And thus, with regard to the conception, we started with it, and first points have been implemented. And the idea is that ACLs will be defined on an API level, and the APIs are the either UDM manager for standard objects or the KPIs for UCS, it's called, and the Kelvin APIs, sorry, for open. They're more or less what you see, the APIs, what you see at the web interface. So the face that you see at the web interface is also an attribute for the API. And this means that I can define rights on a level which is easy to understand and which corresponds to the actions. So this is allowed to change a password, yes or no. And these actions can then be collected or gathered, and then you can say you can change a password. For example, once the person who wants to change a password is a teacher, and the person whose password is to be changed is a student, sorry, and both are active at the same school. That's a rule that I could define. So that's the rough idea that we've got behind this. Technically, and with regard to the conception we cite for Kelvin API, we have the Open Policy Agent. This is an open source framework for the assessment of rights and application that has been integrated in the standard app. And on this basis, we will expand in the months to come. And what will be in line with this is that the web interface will be adapted to the roles and rights model, so that the web interface then shows me the attribute. For example, can I only read? Then it's gray. If I'm not even allowed to read, then it will not even be displayed. This will be in parallel with regard to the web interfaces to UGS. And again, this will be something that will be done module by module, and this will certainly take a certain period of time. And just to advertise, tomorrow I've got a workshop slot on this topic, and I would like to get into a discussion which components and which rights should be set and are important for this. Okay, and before I get away from stage because of time reasons, this is my last slide. There are a lot of other things. I just picked out a few things that will be happening in the months to come. With regard to the support tools, we would like to do something. And the Samba update, we also would look at other core components. We will look at driverless printing. We also have ISV, so software manufacturers for our App Center. We want to make processes simpler and more transparent. We want to extend the functionality of the portal. So Phoenix functionalities that are emerging should be supported, but we will also be active at the basis. We will start with the UCS 5.1, which will offer a new Debian release, and the possible Python 2 support will then be discontinued. But I can tell you UCS 5.1 will not be a change of APIs, so all apps that work under UCS 5.0 will work under 5.1. And thus, we will now get into more detail, so for modularization, containerization, but also user interface. And my two colleagues will get into this. I would like to thank for your attention and look forward to the afternoon.